I'm Baratunde Thurston, and welcome to In the Making, a series from PolicyLink where we're asking more than how do we fix what's broken. We're asking how do we build what's next? And that's what my guest and I are going to talk about right now. If you haven't seen our last episodes, you should really catch up on those conversations. I encourage you, and by encourage you, I mean strongly, click away and then come back when you're done your homework. We talked about how even the best programs can be undermined when the governing design isn't set up for everyone to thrive. That breaks trust over generations of people who then don't count on government to do what they say they'll do. What we're talking about is redesigning the very operating system so it actually delivers for everyday people, which is the only thing that's going to rebuild that trust. So yeah, there's a lot of work for us to get done. But here's where it gets interesting. We also explored the widespread feeling shared amongst Americans across backgrounds, across different ideologies, that this whole system is rigged. Yet so many of us across vast divides actually want the same core things from our government. We want it to be competent. Imagine that. We want it to be like a lifeguard that keeps us safe and fair, like a referee. We're tired of government that acts like a mean boss or a landlord, or worse yet, tries to drown us. So maybe, and just go with me on this, maybe the shared feeling of a broken system and these shared fundamental desires for accountability by all of us, a care for all of us, maybe that could be just the catalyst we need in this moment. Instead of being stuck in the pain, maybe that's the common ground from which we can begin the serious work of redesigning a nation that actually works for all. Well, what if the blueprints for this redesign of the nation also weren't in the US Capitol? They weren't in Washington, D.C. What if they're being drawn up and tested right now, right as we speak, everywhere across the country? Today, we're going to explore how states and local communities can and probably must in this moment be the foundation for truly transformative work. Because while the vision is national, when the national level of government is actually blocking your way, then we got to turn to the local and the regional and the state levels. That's where the potholes get filled. That's where you get your business license. That's where rent is controlled or not so that community well-being is prioritized over corporate landlord profits or not. You get my idea. So we're coming to you today from a very special, most American of cities, New Orleans, a city whose people have shown us a lot about what it means to rebuild, about community being the heart and soul and the roots that we are proud to build from to get where we're going. I can't think of an actually better city to do this from. And once again, I am joined by Michael McAfee and Ashleigh Gardere of PolicyLink to talk about how this work on the ground, in our states, in our communities, is where we start building what comes next. Let's get into it. Michael, Ashleigh, welcome back.
Good to be here.
I'm excited to be in New Orleans. I'm gonna be honest, I'm mad that it's for such a brief amount of time.
Yeah.
And I obviously have to start with you because you invited us into your home. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I have never met someone from New Orleans who I didn't know was from New Orleans because you're always telling us.
Yes, this is true. This is true.
But you have good reason to. This is a magic, beautiful, special city. And you've brought it up a lot during this series. I'd love for you to think about when in this topic of how localities are really the proving grounds for how we build what's next. What specifically comes to mind for you in this great city?
So when I thought about the question, it makes me think about our founders' capacities, that we have this notion first that we have to take a founder stance.
And that's like we being everybody.
All of us.
Not just a group of dudes with wigs and powder.
That's right. That's right. That all of us are still founders. The founding of this nation continues, and we too are founders.
Okay.
And so we talked about founders' capacities. There are 6 of them. The first is foresight, right? The ability to look ahead and see what's coming. The second, really around radical imagination, like the bigness of our ideas. Then audacity, matched up with humility, love for all, and then self-renewal.
Okay.
And so when I think about New Orleans and our story, you can see those capacities across our history. But when I think about these other founders' capacities, so audacity, humility, radical imagination, it brings me forward to 2005 and Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
And only now do I think that people can start to appreciate what it means to lose everything. We lost everything. Not just our homes, our community institutions, our culture was moved to other places. And so coming back to New Orleans after Katrina, we had to rebuild every single system required in modern civilization: education, healthcare, the criminal legal system, every system you can imagine. And first of all, I don't know if people remember, but the original question was, well, why even bother? Is New Orleans worth saving?
Yeah.
And so when you think about audacity, our community was like, hell yeah. And we will build it ourselves if we have to, right? But then, it's dangerous to be audacious and not be humble. And
Can you say that one more time for the people in the back?
it's dangerous to be audacious and not be humble.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I saw us do in those post-Katrina days that did not feel present before was, you kind of had Black New Orleans and white New Orleans and Vietnamese New Orleans, and everybody was doing their own thing. And in that level of crisis and devastation, we finally recognize it actually takes all of us. Yeah. So our business community realized, oh, wait, my wealth and my well-being is tied to yours, right? And so in the rebuilding of those institutions, all of a sudden you saw a diversity of people who cared about healthcare and the healthcare system, right? You saw a diversity of people who cared about education and who cared about our courts. Court Watch came after Katrina, where regular citizens were like, you know what, I'm gonna just go in there and see what they're talking about. Let me bear witness to what's happening here, right?
Being nosy on behalf of the collective.
On behalf of all, right? And so it took audacity to say, yes, we will rebuild, humility to find one another, and then radical imagination to believe that we could build something different and better than what we had before. We used to have a charity hospital system, and if you were poor, whether you had a nosebleed or you had a heart attack, you went to charity hospital. Post-Katrina, we built a whole network of federally qualified health centers, right? All of that was available in our story. When I think about love for all, I think about this moment and this question that's being called about, do we love our neighbors? And how we all feel about immigration. And the most beautiful testament that I have seen in this journey is that when it came to New Orleans, people around the state feel different ways. But New Orleanians are like, wait a minute, I would not be back in my home if it had not been for my Hispanic brothers and sisters. Like we wouldn't be here. And so, no, I am gonna stand in solidarity with them. The tension and the question is on this last one. And I always, whenever we talk about the founders' capacities, I say, ooh, Lord. Self-renewal is the hardest because it means that we have to recognize that there's something about how we're showing up, the choices that we make, that isn't serving us and that we need to do something different.
That is, your answers to this are inspiring and frustrating.
Yes.
And I just want to name the frustration part because part of me is like, yo, we've been at this for a long time. And then part of me is like, yo, we've been at this for a long time, right? It's all about tone. Same sentence, very different meaning. And so, Michael, I want to give you an opportunity, whether it's about the great state of Louisiana or the beautiful city of New Orleans or elsewhere. How do you, one, reckon with the flip side of like, yo, we've been at this for a long time? And as you're thinking about local and state as proving grounds, what have you seen that keeps you on the positive side of like, let's keep at this because I've seen X, Y, or Z?
Well, first I stay positive because I understand what I signed up for. we already knew it was going to be a long journey. So even though that's frustrating, it's also grounding for me. It's grounding because I realize it's not going to happen. Everything's not going to happen in my lifetime.
A little humility.
Yes. Yeah. I want it to happen in my lifetime.
Yeah, of course.
I'll work that way,
Yeah.
but it's not. And so I appreciate, and also now I'm old enough to appreciate what folks before me have done and what they built.
Yeah.
So the question before me now is not about trying to rush to get to the end of something else. It is about with the time I have on this earth, whatever it is, how will I honor them by creating something that is equally as powerful? That's why I want PolicyLink to be a powerful results-based institution. And I want other institutions like that. So I start there.
Yeah.
That's how I stay positive. Yeah. But I also stay positive because no matter what city you go to, you see people doing things.
Yeah.
You take this moment that we're in. It's everyday people feeding folks, picking the kids up from school, standing in front of harm's way and protecting them, speaking out. That happens everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to find examples. The thing that I also do, though, is I don't romanticize local, state, or national. The reason why I don't romanticize it is because we constantly waffle between the three. This is a nation-building moment where we need to get it all right at every level. So when Ashleigh talks about governing for all, the problem has been, one, we've never gotten governing for all right at all. But you can't just do that at one level. You need it all to work in order for us to finally realize the promise of that simple word. And so what I want people to do is to not think that this is a moment where you just run the local.
Okay.
Not a moment you all will just run to state. Not a moment that you just run the federal. Because every time you do that, you end up rolling back all the progress that you made at one particular level. And so you keep starting back at zero again. We've got to hold the gains we've made federally. Even in a tough moment like this, we've got to hold the gains we made at the state level. We've got to hold the gains at the local level and build upon them. That's the work for our generation. Not one or the other.
All.
It's all. It's got to be comprehensive work that we've got to do.
Yeah. We're in this moment where, and we've been in related moments through history. It's not simply that at local or state or federal, there is a lack of support. We have a current situation where the federal bucket is in direct opposition. And sometimes it's been the state, right? Historically speaking, we've had some states that are just like, we are not about the all at all. And it's the feds that come in and be like, let me remind you of these documents. Let me remind you of that Declaration and that Constitution and these Bill of Rights. But now those roles are kind of reversed. And I'll take the modifier out. Those roles are reversed. And so we're seeing the local stand for, and we're seeing the federal stand against in many ways. What kind of pressure does that put on the state and local to be safe harbors, to be positive examples, to be proving grounds?
We've got over 80 million people struggling to make ends meet in America. Those people don't live in the federal government. They live in places. Yeah. They live in places. So the outcomes that we're producing, no matter how much we want to high five, are insufficient for the scale of the problem. So that's what I want our electeds to focus on. That's what I want our local people to focus on. What do we need to do to see the humanity to the 85 million plus?
And so it's not sufficient.
It's not sufficient.
But it is necessary. And so we need something to hold on to. Like, I'm talking myself up now. I'm like, well, hold up now. We have some wins. We have some examples. What I'm seeing in the Twin Cities is this beautiful proof point that we start where we are, right? That place matters. And it's the people walking kids to school so that they don't get taken, right? And it's blow the whistle, right? To look out, and it's parents recommitting to kids they don't even know. Sometimes the schools that their kids don't even go to. So that's a really, and it's mostly from a distance for me. I do not live there. And I don't work professionally there in like civil rights or human rights or capacity building, but y'all do. And in many different places. New Orleans is special, and it's not, right? Because it's just where people are. So give me some more examples of what you've seen in your career as far as what can happen at the local and state level that tangibly reminds people we got power, we can wield it for all.
You know, you see folks in local communities passing tenant protection laws to help make sure that people can vote. People are passing voting laws locally to make sure people continue to have their rights, right? People are starting to think about, you know, when this upcoming election happens, how are we going to ensure that the federal government doesn't interfere? Right. And they're preparing for that now. So those are just small examples.
Yeah.
I was, when we think about the Twin Cities, it was just a few years ago that St. Paul, that was a local campaign around eviction protection and tenants' rights, right? And so in some ways, we both can be extraordinarily proud of how folks are standing up and standing in the gap in this moment. And there were signals, right, from that same place about like, we care for our people, right? I think about Louisiana and, our state government really is aligned with the idea of like, we might actually care more about some people than others, right? Yeah. And you saw our organizers on the ground really come together to beat back 4 constitutional amendments. We talked about that in an earlier episode, one of which would allow you to try a 13-year-old as an adult, right? One of the amendments was really about taking our power, right? Having a way to wiggle around the courts so that, if I don't like this decision, we can just set up a different kind of structure. And these are everyday folks who say, no, we are not okay with that. And it wasn't like, oh my goodness, a federal election went one way, and so we just have to wait 4 years or 8 years till the next time. It was, no, we're founders now. We get to decide now. And I think what you see in the Minneapolis example, in the St. Paul example, here in New Orleans, is that especially when people work beyond the confines of their single issue, right? So it's not like, well, I care about housing. Call me when y'all working on housing, right? But that you saw housing advocates join with education advocates and healthcare advocates and criminal legal system advocates. They came together to beat back those state amendments, right? They came together to win those campaigns in those local elections. And I think we need more of that. But that's when you see the most power on display, and that matters because we do need times to be reminded that, wait, like 5 guys don't decide for us. Yeah. There are 350 million of us, right? Yeah. Who can actually, when we bind together, when we join together, we actually can move the future of this nation.
And you see it in 2 other real-time examples. You see it around AI data centers. Memphis is a perfect example. It's local leaders who are saying no.
I just got to acknowledge the steamboats. Here we are in.
We're in New Orleans.
If you thought I was making it up, because I'm in a generic hotel room, but it's a generic hotel room in New Orleans, and you just heard proof.
That's right.
As you were saying.
That's right. In Memphis, corporations are trying to cite a data center, and it's local leadership that's pushing that back, right? It's folks giving people thermal cameras to prove that the company is lying about how many generators are actually online, as an example, right? They're out there documenting that. You take the South, where folks have wanted to build 8,000 capacity detention holding centers, and folks have said no to that, right? So this is a powerful moment of local leadership.
So I love this game. I'm gonna throw something to have myself.
Yes.
So I recently came across and shared, it was a very local town meeting, and a bearded country home looking, just like a white guy, like a classic white guy who I might have judged if I didn't hear the content of what he was saying, because I've been programmed too. And he's here making a case based on World War II, and German neighbors to a concentration camp. And when the US soldiers came, they made the whole town tour it. And they said, y'all did this. And the people were initially resistant. They're like, but we didn't know. And he's like, but you didn't ask. And you knew something was off. And the mayor took responsibility, and he, there was a lot of accountability, a lot of pain. And so what this man said today, this was in a small town in Arizona, he said, don't be that town. We know where this can go. Let's stop it now. Do you want to be on the other side of a tribunal? Right? Like you could appeal a different way. So that was one example. There was another where I live in Palm Springs. And you want to talk about radical imagination? We got reparations, right? For Black communities that have been displaced due to government action in a part of town called Section 14, there has been meaningful acknowledgement and restitution for the families and the descendants of those families. And so people think this is an impossibility.
Yes.
It's impossible until it's done.
That's right.
And then this is yet another case. We've had other local cases of reparations happening. So that's just really beautiful. And the last case is here in the South, in Arkansas, which is very easy for the coastal people to just be like, there's nothing popping off in Arkansas to be proud of. That is not true. And a friend of mine happened to make a short documentary about the AP African American History course that's running in Central High School of the famed Little Rock 9 and North Little Rock High and some other schools, and it was under threat. They were discrediting it thanks to what happened in Florida. Arkansas was like, we'll copy and paste that. But the teachers, the students, the parents all got together and they rolled that policy back. In 2025. So yes, there's a lot of besiegement. There's a lot of taking of L's in many different ways, but there's also wins. And we got to keep those wins in mind to keep that wind out of that. Yeah. And I think that's an important premise to the power of local and state or any lever. I'm not trying to romanticize. I took the note. But what is different now from the 1860s is that we also have new tools to coordinate and to accelerate that learning that you talked about. And so it doesn't have to take years, it might take days. And even in what's happening with immigration enforcement in this country, cities are teaching each other. LA teaches Portland, teaches DC, teaches Chicago, teaches the Twin Cities. And so the next town is gonna be a lot more prepared because of that knowledge sharing.
That's right. You know, one of the things we haven't touched on that I think is really important about the power of local is the power it has to teach us how to govern for all.
Okay.
The decision around what you just described, around the curriculum, that's a local governing decision. But we often don't come back out of the issue and say, what did we learn about that? Right? Like, when we talk about this as a nation building moment, that's a perfect example of what it takes to build the right nation. Folks choosing to decide to see someone else's humanity and work in service of their thriving. And so it's nice that we see a bunch of activity going on at the local level, but imagine if we saw it as building that governing muscle. It's not a one-off thing. All these things we're talking about can be one-offs. And we never really step back and say, did I learn anything for the collective out of that? The collective learning is to govern that way consistently for everyone. And then to change the institution so that you don't have to scream and yell so much the next time. It happens. And so I just wanted to put that out there because it's at the local level where we can really learn how to master this thing around governing for all.
So can I get a piece of that? Okay. So what you're saying is so important, Michael, because our Constitution, but I got a note. I need to.
I love
so
that.
The Constitution declares, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. We do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So here's what we've learned on this journey.
Well, I've learned that you just keep constitutional notes at the ready.
You just look.
She stay ready. I love it.
Because we're founders. We're founders, and we got to know what the original promises are.
So what else did we learn?
So to Michael's point, there's a promise around general welfare in the Constitution. Well, what we've learned is that it also directs, like the states are responsible for general welfare. That's not a federal government operating mechanism. So what that means is that it is state and local who help to define what general welfare means.
And deliver.
And deliver.
Yeah.
Now that can either hit you as great news or like, ooh, I'm counting on my state to work in service of my general welfare. And so, Michael, what you said about what are the lessons that we learn, that we don't just have to keep learning them again, one system to another. Can you imagine if the state of Louisiana, the state of California, state of Minnesota actually decided to define what general welfare would mean in their state? Like, what are we obligated to deliver towards everyone's thriving, everyone's flourishing in our state? We don't have to wait until the winds change at the federal level. That's how you operationalize what you are inviting us to. That we take, like, okay, so when we passed, unanimous jury legislation in Louisiana, that was for a criminal legal system. But we learned something about how, as citizens, we get to govern. And quite frankly, that was signaling a bit about like what's cruel and unusual punishment for a particular group of people. Or what, like, all of a sudden we can take that lesson and add that to a definition of general welfare.
That's right.
Right?
And this is why it's important to have a founder's consciousness.
Yes.
Because if you don't have a founder's consciousness, you miss all of this.
Yes.
Because you don't even ask yourself, well, what is the work of a founder?
Yes.
You'll stay busy kind of constantly cleaning up the mess
Yes.
of not founding something new.
Yes.
These behaviors, the things we're talking about, come out of holding a founder's consciousness and ultimately a leadership stance that allows you to say there is new work for us to do. That's why this conversation is so important, that there is new work for this generation to do. We've been doing place-based work forever.
Yes.
Now we got to say, what's the next evolutionary leap we make in place-based work?
Yes.
It is to do the founding piece of the work.
Yeah.
To that point, to promote the general welfare.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that gets us beyond feel-good examples,
Yes.
even tangibly good examples, to seeing the pattern that already exists.
Yes.
I think what I'd love to emphasize with you, I assume, we'll see, but I think there's a yes and to the founder mindset in that I don't think you or we are asking people to become different people, right? We're not saying entirely, we got to change everything we believe, right? We got to shift to this set of values. It's more about we've got to see this story that's already happening, but together. We got to see the relationships between these and apply them in a much bigger set of aspirations. So it's
Curious,
not.
I'm like,
Oh, see what you're going to say.
Yeah, because I see, very simply, I see democracy is dying,
Yes.
right? Tangibly,
Yes.
vote people, you can measure the lower access to voting as a measure of healthy democracy,
Yes.
the lower access to quality information as a measure of healthy democracy, the concentration of wealth, and they're all going in the wrong direction.
Yes.
So somebody looking at a dashboard of democracy be like, down.
Yes.
And democracy is being born. And there's like these new models, some of them are very old models, but what you're talking about, what we're talking about in this local thing is stitching that story together, stitching those policies and those lessons together to be like, this doesn't just have to be your local win.
Yeah.
This can be like a bigger collective vision for how we do the governing for all.
So I agree with that.
Okay.
Two caveats.
Love caveats.
Okay, so one, just if we stick with the specific issue area examples. So I'm going to celebrate that in the same federal election that got us where it's gotten us, New Orleans residents with 75% of the vote established a housing trust fund. That's a big deal. That's the citizens en masse saying we actually care that everyone has access to safe and affordable housing. So, housing trust fund
Housing
example,
trust fund,
right?
that's a great
Huge
example.
win.
Yeah.
But when we apply the general welfare lens, all of a sudden, that doesn't just have to be for the people of New Orleans. And it doesn't just have to be a relatively small portion of the city budget. If we step up to defining what general welfare means for the state of Louisiana and demanding that, that definition may be, no, everyone has to have safe and affordable housing. So I think it's not just about combining the wins, but it's about a leveling up of the wins. That's my first response.
Agreed.
The second is I do think we have to become different people.
Okay.
I do. When we go back to, whether you start at 1619 or 1776 or 1787, you pick your start date, we have the most beautiful promises in our founding documents. Promises that I have committed my life to. The challenge is, underneath all, the promise of all, we have all still been complicit in this construct of there must be winners and there must be losers. And so even all of the policy reforms that we've spoken to so far are still, they get limited because underneath it's still us deciding what you get to have.
When it's us versus them.
Yes.
As like a committed construct.
Yes.
And that has to go.
So then our interventions can only be incremental because I'm still holding, well, how much do I want you to have in relationship to what I have? And I really don't believe until we decide we're done with that. You know what, 250 years of that, maybe we could evolve to something different. I think that's what's required to get us to a body of laws, a set of governing institutions that actually are in service of everyone, that doesn't require what's the latest intervention that gets us an incremental improvement. But what I appreciate about this moment and the terrible destruction of it all, right? The dismantling of it all is that we get to choose this time, you know what? When we get back into this thing, which is today, not next week or a couple years, when we get back into it, I'm deciding that what I design, what I choose to build is for everyone. No more, you get to be a winner and you get to be a loser, and I got to make sure in that definition I'm on the winning side. I think that requires something, like that does require us to become something different.
And so I think to kind of conclude this phase of our discussion, 3 cheers for the local and the state, right? And it's a call to apply the lessons that are distributed throughout to ask a bigger question. That's right. Who do we actually want to be?
Yes.
Who do we need to be to deliver for all? Like, so if we say that's going to be true, we're going to deliver for all, then what has to be true for us to get there?
Yes.
And that's the work we're going to be about.
That's it.
A pleasure as always.
As always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ashleigh. Thank you.